We all know that Marie Antoinette supposedly lost her head because when she was told that the French people didn't have bread, that they should eat cake. Now the question is, even if this was nothing more than a brilliant piece of propaganda, why was it so effective? And this is the reason. The people did not have bread. There was not enough bread to go around. And there was not enough bread because there was not enough wheat to bake the bread that everybody needed. And there was not enough wheat because they were in a cold period in the climate where it was impossible to grow the amount of wheat that they needed. Now, the British were also in the same situation, but the British, in contrast to the French, the farmers over there, they adapted. The French continued to try to grow wheat in conditions where wheat would not grow, and the British shifted over to pasturing and to raising herds of cattle that were cold tolerant, and so they did not have the hunger and they did not have the revolution. Now at this particular point in time, if you believe some people, and I do believe them, we are going into another cold period in which it will be difficult to grow grain. And the question is, how are we going to get by? Well, in my own process of tweaking my hydroponic system and my little farm system and food growing systems, I've come across the concept of nutrient density. And I was already going in this kind of direction without knowing it, because in my work, I've decided that I should be concentrating on greens that are cold tolerant and somewhat shade tolerant as a way to produce food in abundance for myself and for others. And so just the other day, I was looking at some stuff and came across the nutrient density issue, which I bumped into before. That basically has to do with rating foods in terms of the amount of vitamins and minerals and other important nutrients that you can get by eating them. Well, you can go onto the web and search nutrient density, and you're going to find that grains do not rank very high in nutrient density. If you look at lists that are 20, 30, 40, 50 items, you will probably not find grain on that list, certainly not on the shorter list. You will probably have to go to a list with 100 items before you find grain ranked in nutrient density, and then you will find that it is very low on the scale. So the bottom line on grain is that we don't need it to live. Now, it is true that for hundreds or thousands of years, civilizations have been grain-fed, and we talk about the staff of life, and the Japanese and the Chinese are all up in wanting rice and things like this. But the truth is, those are not very good foods from the standpoint of nutrient density, and in fact, they are harmful foods if you take them as much as we do. These are the foods that give us gluten allergies. These are the foods that make us fat because of the amount of calories in them that are rapidly converted to fat. These foods really are the main cause, or one of the main causes, of most of the diseases of civilization, such as heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And in addition to improving your own health, you can also improve your survivability by moving away from using grains. Now, taking the world as a whole, this of course would be a very disruptive sort of change, but if the people who say that we're not going to be able to grow grain are right, then the disruption is going to happen anyway, and we are already seeing it. For instance, in the Midwestern part of the United States, we've lost huge amounts of grain last summer, winter wheat and spring wheat and things like this, and there's no reason to assume we're not going to have a repeat of that performance this year. So grain is going away whether we like it or not, and we will need to shift to other types of foods that we can grow under the conditions we are beginning to experience. And many of these foods are things like kale, spinach, collards, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, all kinds of lettuces, and things like that are somewhat cold tolerant and shade tolerant and are easy to grow, and which can be very productive. it remains to be seen whether or not large-scale agriculture can adapt to doing these things. But of course, here in California, they are already doing that, doing field-level kind of production of all these things. So it can probably be extended into the Midwest, albeit with a lot of investment and a lot of change in the attitudes of a lot of people. But we're really coming up onto a time when we each have to decide whether or not we want to survive and thrive, or whether we want to die because we're not willing to make the changes we need to make to get through this period.